95.7 The Game.
Here on a Saturday morning on The Game, Evan Giddings, Dan Devone, Carter Chickering, Holy Trinity, rocking with you 9 to noon as we do as always. Dan, my man, I see you're perspirating, the lather's going on, you're gleaning. What's going on, my man?
Well, you know I do those up-downs before the show just to get mentally and physically prepared for the next 3 hours. And I like that, the Holy Trinity. This is sort of like the Wishbone backfield back in the day. We got Carter,
Yep.
Big Chick. Brandon Staley joins us once again. I don't know where the hell he's been for the last month. By the way, I need a written excuse if you're gonna show up to one of our shows, but let's do this, man. Yeah, I'm sweating, but I'm ready to go, man. Had to sprint here. It was a little close, but we're just under the wire.
Well, look, but before we get into the Bay Bridge series, before we get into the latest from 49ers training camp, which Carter was down, by the way, in Santa Clara earlier this week, I want to get his thoughts on that. Also, a couple Warriors updates for you. I do got to ask you because, look, you're up before the Roosters. You're up before the chickens are crawling, and before I got to go walk my dog at about 6 a.m. this morning. He's jumping on me, batting me around, saying, get the hell up. Where are you? What are you doing? Dan Devone's already up and getting his 3 miles in. So you're up at the crack of dawn or before the crack of dawn, and you still find some time, not just for us, but then you're also headed right to the airport after. Like, do you ever stop in life for a moment and say, maybe I want to just take a breath?
No, all the time. I think that it's sort of a misperception of what it is that you think my lifestyle entails. But today's a little crazy because I do have a 1:15 flight out to New York City and the show's done at noon. So what's the over and under that I catch that thing?
I'd say 22 and a half minutes. I think you'd be all right from here to SFO. Not too bad, especially if you got an Uber or, I don't know, Carter uses Waymo, whatever, Lyft is going on, whatever these transportation devices.
Waymo's the thing, man. Waymo, I'm a Waymo guy. My Waymo literally pulled over for sirens. Like, how does it know? Like, when you hear the sirens of a fire truck, which was a good half mile away, it pulled over to the right. I'm like, man, Waymo, my man.
Dude, I was reading about the social experiment that you could stop a Waymo car with a balloon. If you throw a balloon in front of a Waymo, it will stop. That's the reason I can't get in those things. I cannot do it. There has to be someone in the front seat of my car, whether it's a robot, whether it's a dog. It has to be something with at least a semblance of a pulse for me to believe that I'm going to get to my location on time.
I think that Waymo, we're going to think of Waymo and driverless cars much like that of the rotary telephone in like 20 to 25 years. You're going to be like, really? You guys used to drive? Are you kidding me? Like, what's that key for the ignition? Like, what are you guys doing?
Oh, Waymo's going to be in the sky in 25 years.
Oh, that's true. We'll go Jetsons before long.
Yeah, look, me and Carter are heading out to the opposite side of the bridge today for the first game of the final 2 Bay Bridge Series games between the Oakland Athletics and the San Francisco Giants. That's kind of where I want to start.
What's
today,
the over
Dan.
and under that you guys drink a half rack? Go ahead.
Just depends on what kind of what kind of beverage you're talking here. Coke Zero might be mixed with something else.
So I'm hearing, before we get into this, that, the A's take a lot of hit, obviously, for the amenities or the lack thereof out there. What's the name of what it is that they play these days? I don't even know. Lost track.
Coliseum.
Is it still the Coliseum? All right. The Oakland Alameda County Coliseum.
I mean, the place is going to be around after the nuclear bomb hits. Let's be honest. It's like a cockroach. You can't
if you go pound for pound, food for food, obviously, Chase crushes them, right? Or Oracle.
Oracle, yeah, of course.
But the chicken strips, from what I understand, apparently, the nod goes to Oakland. Can you lend any sort of insight?
Well, I don't know about the chicken strips because as a kid, Dan, you pretty much just stopped over at Subway, grabbed the $5 footlong, and then stuck it into the building. But I do know that I was able to recently convert one Carter Chickering. He's got his Giants hat on today. Might as well have the split cap going on. But was able to convert him over to the Oakland side. So, Carter, I know that, look, it took you, a month or 2 ago to your first Oakland A's game. Now that you have the lay of the land, now that you know that the Bay Bridge Series, you will see one in Oakland. I actually do think it's going to be quite packed. There'll probably be at least 25,000 people, which for the Coliseum is quite a lot. What are you most looking forward to later on today? Uh-oh. Got to pot that up.
Our producer needs to pot up his own mic.
Uh-oh.
To see that stunning stadium, of course.
Oh, and that was the first thing that came out of his mouth when he walked through the Dennis Eckersley gate. No, look, what I'm looking forward to, quite honestly, is just the experience, right? I think that's kind of a lot of A's fans, and I'm one of them, that have sort of left to cling to is this idea that, Bay Area baseball has always been two-sided. You got two sides of the bridge. You got multiple choices. Used to be the Raiders on that side as well, the Golden State Warriors. And so there was somewhat of a rivalry. Look, you're a city kid, Dan, so I feel like we can have this conversation. Sure. Growing up, I do think there was this identity of having your teams represent you and your side of the bridge. And this is essentially the final severance of that identity. There is not going to be any more East Bay sports, or at least at the Major League, National Basketball, and then, of course, National Football League level. There's still going to be, I think the Oakland Roots are still going to play at the Coliseum next year. You obviously have the San Jose Sharks. But as far as dual teams, dual options, there is none of that anymore because the Warriors now play on this side of the bridge that we work in. The San Francisco 49ers are here. The Oakland Raiders are gone. They're in Vegas. And the Oakland A's will be leaving soon, heading up to Sacramento. So when I ask you what you think of when you hear the Bay Bridge series, is it 89? Is it, your friends that you used to try and throw eggs at when they brought A's gear to the city? What do you think of?
So my old man, obviously we were from the city, but he spent a lot of time working in the East Bay. So I grew up going to Oakland A's games. I was an Oakland A's guy, and I would always be that guy that was defending the Oakland A's. And when I was a kid, there were serious arguments. You would go back and forth. But I would say, to me, it culminated probably in the Bay Bridge series, the real Bay Bridge series in 89. I think that when San Francisco and they built the ballpark downtown and all the money and the arrival of Barry Bonds, they went into another stratosphere. And it was no longer sort of this competitive dual market. It was now the San Francisco Giants and the little train that possibly could, that being the Oakland A's. This clearly became more of a one market and then this other thing out there in Oakland. And every time they overachieved, that was the operative word. It's like, how is this team doing it in this small market with this small budget? They were much like that of the Tampa Bay Rays, as opposed to being thought of like that of a powerhouse, like that of their brethren, the San Francisco Giants. I haven't seen this as being sort of a rivalry on equal footing for more than a decade. You got to go back a ways when I could really think of Oakland being sort of that team that could go eyeball to eyeball with San Francisco on so many different levels. But I will say this, since the All-Star break, I want to say 14-4, one of the best records over the last 3 weeks to a month. So there's things to get excited about Oakland. But I'd like to get your thoughts because you're much more into this than I.
Well, the thing that sucks, and look, as far as the game goes, the A's are playing good baseball. The Giants we can get to, they're a 500 team. I think a lot of people have sort of buried their postseason chances with the losing 3 of 4 to the Atlanta Braves. They're now 4.5 back. They lost the tiebreaker. The season is not looking great for the Giants, and the season sort of began on the wrong footing for the A's, knowing that they were going to head up north. As far as this series goes, and I'd be happy to take any calls of people that are going to be out there at the game later on today. I'll be up in Section 320 along with Carter Chickering. Feel free to come by. If you want to buy me a beer, I'd be happy to take one. No, but the point is, in 888-957-9570, kind of what are your experiences as a Bay Bridge Series rivalry participant? What do you think of when you think of the Bay Bridge Series, and what do you think is leaving? That's kind of my question to the audience first here on Saturdays on The Game with Evan Giddings and Dan Devone. Because when I think of this rivalry, and it's less to me, Dan, about the A's versus the Giants, because I think you're right. The rivalry has never really been, it's not like a Niners and Raiders was. It's not too tumultuous. It's never gotten violent. I always enjoyed it because I felt like it was pretty cordial. And I always felt like there was a mutual respect between both sides and both franchises. I think it's also because neither team outside of the 89 area has really been that competitive at the same time. Yeah. Typically, they've taken turns in the spotlight. Now, the Giants, of course, had their run 2010 through 14. The A's had some good teams, and I think that's probably the most recent, best both sides of the bridge baseball that we've seen. The A's 2012 to 2014, with the likes of Donaldson, Cespedes, all the rest, and of course the Giants with Posey, Mad Bum, Sandoval. They had some pretty good teams. But when I think of the Bay Bridge series and kind of the culmination of it, honestly, I think of the severance of this golden age in Bay Area sports. And what I mean by that is this. The city of Oakland, from 1975 up until 2018, saw 10 championships. starting with the Golden State Warriors in 75, the Oakland Raiders in 1980, 1983. Then you move, of course, to, well, I guess you got to go back actually 72. I apologize, because of the three-peat of the A's in the 70s. You have 72, 73, 74, the Golden State Warriors in 75, the Raiders of the early 80s, and then the Warriors playing in Oakland. I know they were the Golden State Warriors, but they play the Oakland Arena at Oracle, and they racked up a total of 3 championships there up until 2018. So you got 10 titles on that side of the bridge. And then also to bring in San Francisco during that period from 81 until 2022, you got 9 championships. Of course, 5 for the San Francisco 49ers, 3 that we just discussed for the San Francisco Giants, and then, of course, 2022 when the Warriors had moved over here, they got their first in San Francisco at Chase Center. So the Bay Area between both sides of the bridge has seen 19 championships in 47 years. That's a championship every 2.5 years between those 3 major sports. And that, to me, is what is sad about this being the end of it, is that whether you're a fan of Oakland sports, whether you're a fan of San Francisco sports, they have always held a very high standard, not just here in the Bay, but across all of sports. You know, Boston talks about being title town, or New York City being the mecca of sports. In a lot of ways, the Bay Area between both sides of the bridge have set the standard for what it is to be a championship-worthy area. And they're not going to have that anymore because the Raiders are gone, the Warriors are on this side of the bridge, and the Oakland A's will be leaving soon. Now, I understand not all of those teams in Oakland have been competitive as of recently, but over the course of 50 years, again, 19 championships is a lot to kind of bask in. And together, they've put forth one of the greatest runs, you know, of the last half century. And that, to me, is what is kind of coming to an end. So when I think of the Bay Bridge series, I don't necessarily think of the individual rivalry between franchises, but what I think of are 2 franchises, 2 sides of the bridge coming together and elevating this area into what has become known as a great sports town, a great sports set of cities. And that's no longer going to be the case.
It's sad. It's sad in the regard that what's happened to Oakland, because it's all about the money and how money has changed sports. And I think Exhibit A is Oakland, because when you talk about their championships and their titles, those were back primarily in the 70s, 72, 73, 74 with the A's. And, of course, the Raiders won one in the late 70s. And, of course, the Warriors and Rick Barry were in the mid-70s.
76 and 80, I apologize. That was in Oakland. 83 was in L.A.
And when you think about San Francisco, it's more relevant. And the reason is that Oakland back in the day, it's a small market. But small markets could coexist with some of the bigger markets and still be competitive. But what happened is that the money has just exponentially gone through the roof, where if you're a small market, you just simply cannot compete, especially at the baseball level. And as far as football and basketball are concerned, well, it becomes about proximity and in terms of drawing from the San Francisco area as opposed to Oakland. And so what's done in Oakland at the end of the day, it's sort of what's driving the sports today, and that is money at every level in every sport. And while Oakland could compete 3 decades ago, that simply is not the case in 2024, unfortunately.
And it's because they choose not to. I mean, this isn't an owner, and we don't have to, litigate the history. Look, it's a foregone conclusion. The team is moving to Sacramento. Unfortunately, there's not much worth going over, but it is because of ownership, and it is because of what you're talking about. It is because, and we're seeing it not just here in the Bay, but we're seeing it all across the country. Teams want their towns to pay for them to stay, to prove to them that they deserve to be a city that has a sports team, and the asking price just continues to climb exponentially. If you want to keep a team, the owner is going to try and extract every single possible dollar out of you, and that's why I feel like we are very lucky with the Golden State Warriors and the fact that an owner and an ownership group led by Joe Lacob was able to find a way to privately fund a castle on the water in Chase Center. That's very rare. That doesn't happen very often, and it should be the case, but unfortunately, it's not. So, I'm looking forward to going out there and just kind of, remembering, again, all of the great players that have walked through, not just that building, but have worn both the jerseys. Because I do think it is about San Francisco and Oakland, not San Francisco versus Oakland, although they'd be playing on the field. but players that have worn and donned those jerseys throughout the years. And you just go down the list, and it is so long, and it is full of yellow and gold jackets, and it's just full of players that, I don't know, are the reason why you like sports. I mean, I don't know about you. I grew up in the East Bay, and the Oakland Coliseum was a place that I fell in love with the game of baseball at. I don't really know why. I mean, you're just going to a game and you're a kid, but there was something about it, that the mood, the fans, it was kind of infectious. I enjoy going to Giants games as well. I enjoy going to baseball games, and I think the birthplace of that love for me was at the Coliseum, and I think it was for a lot of people. So, again, 888-957-9570, if there's any memories or things you'd like to share about the Bay Bridge series. And, again, the final two games between the Oakland A's and the San Francisco Giants are going to be this weekend.
How old were you when Mount Davis came about?
Mount Davis was probably erected far before. I mean, the Raiders moved back, what was it, in the late 80s, early 90s?
That's what changed the landscape for me.
Yeah.
You talk about just ruining a ballpark from a baseball perspective. I'll never forget, it's indelible, that memory of walking into the Coliseum the first time they closed off the bleachers in center field and had Mount Davis out there. And it was the most suffocating feeling I've ever felt in the ballpark, especially there, where, of course, when you'd sit behind the plate or down either line and you could look out and you could see beyond the bleachers and out to the East Bay Hills. And it was just, it was one of the most picturesque ballparks. Yeah, I'll say that. Prior to the, to that disgusting, whatever it is that whoever came up with the idea, well, obviously they did it for the Raiders to bring them back, but not taking the Oakland A's into account and what it did in terms of ruining the beautification of that stadium. Was just, to me, that was the end all. I had a hard time enjoying myself at an A's game from that point forward.
No, and I think in a way that kind of, set the tone for where we are of, basically certain sites placating to specific franchises. I mean, Mount Davis was built because it was a way to lure the Raiders back from Los Angeles to Oakland. They were able to add an extra 20,000 seats, and it was started being built in the mid-1990s, finished in 1996. So I was 2 years old. Like, I don't know the Coliseum pre-Mount Davis. I will fully admit that. But it never really was about Mount Davis for me. Like, I grew up going to games and wasn't the biggest Raiders fan, though I had a lot of friends who were Raiders fans. So it was a common, I enjoyed watching Rolando McClain tackle guys at shortstop, and that was the way it was. And towards September, actually around this time, honestly, the Raiders would be playing preseason games at the Coliseum, and it just, I don't know, it's a place that to me is kind of whatever you make it. Carter, I don't know, jokingly earlier described the first thing he thought about, or the first thing he's going to notice is the beauty of the stadium. It's not a beautiful place. We don't have to sugarcoat it, but it's whatever you make of it, right? Like, I remember, a lot of different things that went down in that place. Some good, some bad. I fell in love there. I got my heart broken there. I had my 18th birthday there. I will be having my 30th birthday there tomorrow.
Romance creeps into every platform.
I've cracked quite a few of those at the Oakland Coliseum. I went to my first baseball game there. I remember Miguel Tejada walk-off. I remember Jonas Cespedes' first home run on domestic soil. I remember watching, one of the Bay Area legend, Tyson Ross's MLB debut. He came out of the bullpen and faced a 42-year-old Ken Griffey Jr., who was at the edge of the end of his career. Like, there's so many things that just kind of pop into mind, and I feel like that's what people go down, that sort of memory lane whenever they step into that place.
I know we didn't prep this off the top of my head. Sorry I didn't give you a heads up on this, but if we were to go position by position, maybe we can just stop at third base, start and stop there. And obviously for the Bay Bridge World Series, but I don't know, who's your best third baseman of all time for the Giants? Pablo?
For the Giants? Well, am I allowed to, like, of this era?
Whatever. You can go back in the day.
Matt Williams, probably.
Oh, Williams. Okay. Yeah. Matt Williams. No,
but Pablo's had the biggest moments for sure.
So if you were put them up, and this is sort of, this is solving nothing in the world, certainly in terms of the Middle East crisis. But if we were to determine who was better, if I was to give you the Oakland A's, I'll go Eric Chavez, and you go Matt Williams. Or who's a better third baseman for the A's? If you want to go back to the days.
Well, so this is the thing is you really can go down the list. Like I had a more intimate Chapman. You got Donaldson.
Donaldson back in the day.
Won MVP the year after he was traded. I mean,
actually, you go way back in the day. There's a guy named Captain Sal Bando.
Cardi Lansford wasn't too bad.
Cardi Lansford, good call.
So at shortstop,
Miggy, you got to go Miggy.
Miguel Tejada. Guy had a little bit of extra help, should we say, but he was a fantastic shortstop. Second base, probably go Jeff Kent between the two sides.
Well, I'm trying to think of a good second baseman for that of the Oakland A's.
Well, the guy who played the longest would be Dick Green, certainly. Like Mark Ellis probably had the most games at second base for the Oakland A's. First base, probably Giambi.
Got to go Giambi.
Probably be Giambi.
And much like Tiata, he was in that era, but still, I don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he was.
He was an impossible.
Well, but really, is he going to trump McCovey?
Oh, well, if you want to go that far back, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, McCovey, who, by the way, knocked out Cepeda. They might have had a longer tenure in San Francisco if it wasn't for Pop. Behind home plate, Posey. I don't think there's a discussion there.
Fosse?
I'd take Steinbach over Fosse.
Steinbach? Yeah.
And then when you get to the outfield, it's kind of interesting. Left field for sure is Bonds. In center field, you're probably going down the list.
Coco Crisp.
Covelli Crisp. By the way, I actually got to meet Covelli, a.k.a. Coco Crisp, at an Oakland baseball camp he pulled up to I think it was at Greenman Field. I was like 13 years old. He pulled up in a Rolls Royce. and just like, I couldn't believe it. It was like Superman stepped out of the Batmobile. Or switch that around. Batman stepped out of the Batmobile. But like Coco Crisp, also the thing that will always stick in my mind was him knocking out James Shields when he was a member of the Boston Red Sox. But
I'll give you Barry Bonds, but honorable mention, shout out Ricky Henderson. Right, we got to at least mention the name.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason he's not top of mind is because Bond's the greatest player I've ever seen in my life.
No, that's true.
I also, unfortunately, didn't get to see much of Ricky Henderson's, his prime. I saw him toward the end.
When he was playing for 35 different teams.
Dude, the guy could still play. Yeah. I fully believe that.
He probably still is somewhere in Mexico under an alias.
And then in right field, got
to go Reggie.
Oh, yeah? Reggie Jackson. See, this is where your knowledge is just...
Well, I'm trying to think. Right field has never been... I don't know. Do you want to stick Hunter Pence? Or
Hunter Pence is a good call. I'm biased towards Jermaine Dye.
Okay. Yeah, but Jermaine defensively was sort of a liability.
Oh, he's a Gold Glover.
Was he? Okay.
Yeah, the guy got a cannon. But...
so much for that take.
Well, no, I mean, look, and there's so many that's the thing though. It's hard to just whittle it down to one player outside of a couple different positions, and and there's so many random players that pop into your mind. Like my favorite right fielder to watch was Josh Reddick.
Josh Reddick. Well, that was that 2012. That was a fun run with Cespedes, Reddick, Donaldson. Didn't they have that kid Seth Smith, or what was the...
Seth Smith had a big hit.
Out in center field, yeah.
I think it was the 2012 playoffs off Jose Valverde for the Detroit Tigers.
He was, and that was, those were fun teams. There was good personality. That was a fun run during that little 3 to 5 year window for the A's. So, yeah, J.J. Reddick, who's still, he's up with the Mariners?
Josh Reddick.
Reddick.
Yeah, last I checked. He's with the... Sorry, what was that, Carter? Oh, I got you. In that case, let's try to sneak a call in before we hit a break here. Let's go out to Vallejo, talk to our guy Skills. Skills, what's going on? Want to talk about the Battle of the Bay? What's going on?
Hey, good morning, Gavin. Good morning, Dan. Good to be on with you. I just wanted to share a quick story from the Battle of the Bay that I went to in 2009. And it was one of the most fun, memorable times I ever had at a game, and it didn't really have to do with the game. It was the 20-year anniversary of the Giants winning the 89th minute before they started winning World Series. So they were celebrating on the field. They had all the players back and all that. Craig Lefferts, the former reliever, who must have been in his mid-50s by this point, came flying in, running full speed from the center field wall, all the way to the infield. It was awesome to watch. But the most poignant moment, they got to Jose Uribe, who, of course, had passed away a couple years before that. Juan Uribe happened to be on the team, his cousin, and they presented his wife, who was in Jose's place, with something. I forget what it was they presented her with. But she fell apart right there on the field, and Juan was there to comfort her. It was a really nice moment between the Uribe family right there on the field. Then Randy Johnson goes out, wins his 302nd career game, 7 innings. It was just a great time. I'm going to miss the A's. I'm a Giants fan, have been since '90. I'm going to miss the A's. It's really terrible that they're leaving like this. Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate that, Skills. Yeah, I think there's a lot of players, or a lot of people that
I'll
that
never
feel
forget Hank Greenwald, who used to call San Francisco Giant games, and his son, I believe, broadcast for the team from time to time. He was just had the driest wit, absolute classic. And so Jose Uribe played with the St. Louis Cardinals, traded to the San Francisco Giants, but his name was Jose Gonzalez, and he was thrown into the deal at the very end. His name was Jose Gonzalez with the Cardinals, changed it to Jose Uribe. And as he came to the Giants, Hank Greenwald, as only Hank Greenwald could do, talked about the trade, and after Jose Uribe had officially changed his name, said, yes, he is officially and will always be known as the player to be named later. Yeah, I sort of blew the bit there. But Jose Uribe, part of that Roger Craig run. Yeah, Craig Lefferts out of the University of Arizona, the left-hander. Yes, he used to sprint in from one of the first true characters coming out of him and Al Hrabosky back in the day.
And we got to hit a break here, but you also just touched on something that also contributes to this rivalry, which is the list of broadcasters that have broadcasted for those two teams.
Begins and ends there.
I mean, Monty Moore, Lon Simmons, John Miller. Those are just the list of guys that have broadcasted for both.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just one side or the other.
Well, Monty Moore only did the A's.
The Monty Moore, sorry, but Lon Simmons.
Sure.
And, of course, the late John Miller. John Miller got his start with the Oakland Athletics, in fact.
Yeah.
So, and he's still doing it. It's incredible. But when we come back, I do want to shift this a little bit, of course, to some more baseball specifics. Just trying to figure out what the future of baseball is in the Bay Area. I have some thoughts on that. Also coming up, the San Francisco 49ers. John Lynch, I thought, had some interesting comments yesterday, as did Kyle Shanahan. I thought he was very revealing at the podium yesterday, his stance on where things are with not just Brandon Ayuk, but also Trent Williams. And then we even got some Warriors news to come up. That's coming up as we roll along here on Saturdays on 95.7 The Game. Evan Giddings and Dan Devone. We're back after this.